A certain pink puffball has been making his rounds around the internet, and people are starting to enjoy him. I wonder what Nintendo's gonna do. What's up everybody, StevDeS here. It's been a while since I've touched on this topic, and while Meta Nightmare might look like a game packaged for kids, we've had child endangerment, child possessions, and exercising an evil spirit from a Star Warrior who's, by all intents and purposes, just an infant. Not to mention rebellious actions against authority of a land multiple different times just so that authority will do something. Yeah, all of this packaged in a game rated E for everyone. Things would continue that way up until the year 2000, where Meta Knight 64, the Crystal Shards, would get the first kids to adults rating the series has ever gotten, and the final kids to adults rating that the ESRB would be handing out, before they decided to go with everyone and then E10 and then teen. Since poor Kirby was thought about as a child the whole time, and with what was going on with him in the last game, and Meta Knight's tragic backstory being a shock to gamers, this was probably a good call on Nintendo's part. However, Nintendo, as they do, they wanted to test the market, just to see what this game would bring forward. And I'm gonna hold my hand up here. A commenter on the last video pointed this out, and honestly, I made the mistake. I thought Adeline, or Adeline, however you say her name, was a guy. My bad. Adeline is a girl. Okay? I looked it up afterwards and I was shocked. Child StevDeS was wrong. The test marketing made Nintendo announce something. They announced something they didn't expect would really catch on, but they announced that another Dreamland character will be coming to the next installment of the Super Smash Bros. Franchise, Melee. Fans would be speculating, it's probably DDD. He's been there for so long. It's probably Adeline. She had the painting thing, and she actually seems like a capable character. But instead, the additional Dreamland member joining Meta Knight from the first Smash Bros. Is Kirby. The cute pink puffball made an impression in the N64, and bringing the game to the GameCube, people were wondering where Kirby was. The first Meta Knight game to launch for the GameCube didn't premiere Kirby, and some fans were curious about it. Or perhaps Kirby was just someone that Meta Knight had to save, but he was still not a playable character. Fans actually did want Kirby. So, with Kirby's inclusion in Melee, and this Meta Nightmare game not premiering Kirby, fans were hungry for the pink puffball to make his debut. And so, conversations would begin between HAL Labs and Nintendo. Nintendo would want to make Kirby a character, but they're unsure still how to really make Kirby go out there and be their own character. Dreamland has been established by this point, and to change Meta Nightmare's way of doing things would mean they would lose sales on that front. That is where they take a page from Pokemon's book. They decide, in order to properly test the popularity of Kirby's Nightmare in Dreamland, which was a spiritual successor to the first Meta Nightmare in Dreamland, would come out as two separate games. Meta Nightmare in Dreamland and Kirby Nightmare in Dreamland. At first, game magazines would speculate that maybe someone was hacking and, making their own game and porting Kirby into the Meta Knight game, but no, this would be a standard release. Alongside Meta Nightmare in Dreamland, you would have Kirby Nightmare in Dreamland. And so, let's open up on the plot on those two games for What If Kirby Never Landed on Popstar, Part 3. Let's open up with Meta Knight's first. In Meta Knight's game, his main concern is that Kirby was in the middle of Nightmare's return and his attack on Dreamland. So, he's got a pretty straightforward mission. Stop Nightmare, save Kirby, and save all of Dreamland. Just another outing. Kirby Nightmare in Dreamland goes a little bit differently. Kirby is in the middle of the attack, and the little thing is still a timid Star Warrior. He's not properly trained, but he has had some training from Meta Knight by this point. So the cutscenes in that game would reflect it, and Kirby would look inside himself and become the Star Warrior Meta Knights wanted him to be right before every boss fight. Meta Knight gets cutscenes that help establish Kirby as a Star Warrior, while Kirby gets cutscenes that help establish Meta Knight as more of a teacher, and more of a guardian persona. After the amazing sales of both games being pretty much even, Nintendo is convinced at this point, and Kirby is the flagship face on all of Dreamland's mobile adventures. Kirby and the Amazing Mirror would have a special Kirby Game Boy Advance SP with Kirby's face on the folding cover. So with Kirby's Game Boy Advance SP, you'd open up and Kirby would be like right here. I've got a sticker on my SP. Actually, funny thing, this is my friend Chad's SP. Yep, I still got it after all these years, bro. Actually, the funny thing is I don't know what game is in here. It's been so long since I played this thing. What is even in here? Holy sh**. Really? Why did I waste my time on this? Anyway, the Game Boy Advance SP packaged with Kirby and the Amazing Mirror, Kirby's first standalone game, would have a pink Game Boy Advance SP with Kirby's face right here on the front cover, while on the inside, Kirby would just be right here, right above the start, or actually, Mario's got a good position right there. Check it out. That would be where Kirby would be. Right there. Or maybe in this area. This special Game Boy Advance SP would have Kirby and the Amazing Mirror so that people can get to know Kirby a little better as Nintendo's mascot for mobile gaming. The Meta Nightmare franchise would have a couple of more beat-em-up titles and really showcase the skill that Meta Knight has behind him. Even more flying stages where he's flying and using his sword. Maybe a crossover with Kid Icarus? Huh? It could happen. Kirby and the Amazing Mirror would be the first consistent game for this timeline. I really wouldn't change anything about it. Meta Knight would charge in, be bested by Dark Meta Knight, and have to be saved by the split Kirby, who was split by the Dark Meta Knight into 4 separate Kirbys. The next game in the timeline, Kirby Squeak Squad, would again go very similarly. The difference here is that I would bring the cell phone mechanic from Kirby and the Amazing Mirror over to Kirby Squeak Squad, where Kirby could call Meta Knight, DDD, and Bandana Waddle Dee to help him out. Squeak Squad did have a few tough bosses, especially Dark DeRoach. Meanwhile, over on the Wii, a more child-friendly game does get announced, and does release. Meta Knight's Epic Yarn. In order to involve Meta Knight in the story, I would have one of the animal friends from the previous titles appear here, Rick the giant hamster. He would have witnessed Kirby eat the yarn-shaped Maximum Tomato. I'm going to say Metamato, that's what it said in the game. And he would have witnessed poor Kirby being sucked into Yin Yarn's sock. This is a weird game, people. Let's try to be a bit more mature about this. He would be rushing, and in a panic, he would be getting to Meta Knight's house in order to warn him. And Meta Knight's just relaxing, taking it off for a day. And then Rick comes and he has to tell the hamster to calm down.
Rick, calm yourself. What is wrong?
It's Kirby! He ate some weird metamato, and then this weird sorcerer guy, he came up, and he threw Kirby in some sock, sending him that he was going to send him to Patchland or something! It's something weird, Meta Knight, you gotta do something! Meta Knight grabs his sword and sets off to go confront Yin Yarn, and it goes about as well as it did with Kirby. He gets thrown into the sock world too, and Meta Knight appears in Patchland as Yarn Meta Knight. He would end up in Patchland and see Prince Fluff, and again, Kirby's a little more timid due to how he got to Dreamland in the first place. Both of them would be running from several monsters trying to, unravel them. Meta Knight would get in the way and prepare to draw his sword, and it's not a sword. It's just a long wavy piece of yarn, which is not good for Meta Knight. However, he thinks fast and decides to use it as more of a whip. And this works. It latches onto the first enemy, and he's able to unravel him into a yarn ball and throw the yarn ball at the rest of them. He's figured out how to fight in this world.
I see. Kirby, this is how we must fight in this world.
Good night. Please, I need you.
I am Prince Fluff, and your friend here, Kirby, is it? He had done me quite the honor and saved my life when those monsters first attacked. I'm afraid the sorcerer Yin Yarn has separated my land and stolen the magic yarn. I could really use your assistance, Sir Knight. Yin Yarn, you say? Yin Yarn is the sorcerer that had brought us here. Then perhaps we can help one another. If you help me restore Patchland to its former glory, we will find a way to send you and Kirby home. Meta Knight and Kirby agree as they set out with Prince Fluff in order to reconnect Patchland with the magic yarn. Along the way, meeting Adeline and King Dedede. And while Adeline's cutscene is more thank you, I'll help you by painting certain yarn and showing hidden paths in some of the places you've already been to, King Dedede's cutscene is a little bit more entertaining. What? What happened here? Meta dummy! Is this all your fault? Sire, you are in Patchland, and this is the doing of the sorcerer Yin Yarn. It is not mine. Yin Yarn, huh? That must be the weird guy turning Dreamland into a bunch of patches and yarn all over the place. You better get me to my kingdom on the pronto, Meta dummy!
This is where Prince Fluff reveals that he found another sock, and it looks oddly like the one Yin Yarn had. Thinking quick, Meta Knight tells him that this is our way to get home as they go back to Dreamland and confront Yin Yarn. The trio of Dedede, Meta Knight, and Kirby face off against the sorcerer and save Dreamland, turning it back to its former glory. After Meta, the epic yarn, we head on back to the 3DS, where Kirby gets a flagship title for the console. However, the title Kirby Triple Deluxe would have a much more straightforward meaning to it. The Star Warriors. There's 3 of them now. With Dedede's Star Warrior training, Taranza wouldn't have been able to capture the king as easily. Sure, he could blast through the Waddle Dees alright, but when it comes down to King Dedede, he's a bit more combat savvy, being able to hold off Taranza until Meta Knight and Kirby make the scene. As Taranza feigns a defeat, he tries to throw an energy ball right at Kirby, seeing that this must be the hero that Queen Sectonia wants out of the way. Thinking fast, however, Meta Knight throws his sword, which deflects the attack and blasts Taranza higher upon the dream stalk. The rest of the heroes would give chase, hearing about Queen Sectonia and wanting to save this world and get their homes back on the ground where they belong. The rest of the plot here would go pretty much normally. The main difference here is Taranza has a sneaky way to turn the heroes against each other. When they least expect it, King Dedede is assailed from behind, and upon his face a metal mask is put on, making masked DDD come to the fold. The evil in such a mask has taken over the king's mind, and Meta Knight has to stand in the way, turning to Kirby and telling him to go on ahead. He can handle the king, as long as Kirby can win the day. Meta Knight squares off against masked DDD, and Kirby goes on ahead, taking Meta Knight's trust into account. He's no longer timid. In fact, he's very brave at this point, and he's gonna make Meta Knight proud and defeat Queen Sectonia. The day is saved by Kirby, the Feralians shrink the Dreamstalk back down, and everybody's homes are returned for the next outing, where a certain giant spaceship has started approaching Dreamland. This is where we're going to leave things for now. So what do you all think? Do you think the rest of the Kirby timeline's gonna change pretty drastically? Or do you think the mobile games belonging to Kirby and console games belonging to Meta Knight is a fitting switch? Leave your comment below! For more what-ifs in the realms of video gaming and Dragon Ball alike, such as if Frank West went to Raccoon City, God, the guy'll do anything for a story, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Like the video if you enjoyed it, and as always, I'll see you in the next one. Ciao!